Hello, and thank you for listening to another episode of Clark and Addison, Born into the Ivy. I'm your host, David Butler, and I am really enjoying this season. I sure hope you are as well. Even though the Cubs are going through a bit of a rough patch right now. They are 5-5 in the last 10, and this week your Chicago Cubs have gone 2-3. They split with the Brewers 1-1 because of a rainout Wednesday, and then lost their first series at Wrigley 1-2 against the Mariners. They scored 20 runs over the three-game series and 32 over the past 5, as the offense is finally getting back on track. However, the pitching has definitely hit a wall. We will talk about some recaps from this week's games, the Cardinals series preview. I will have 2 more potential draft targets, umpires, and my idea on how to fix some of the issues with them, and the injury report. Remember, the best way to help grow the podcast is to listen to every episode, like the episode, share the episode with your friends, and if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe so that you'll never miss an episode. Join our Facebook or Instagram groups at Clark and Addison, Born into the Ivy. The weekly recap. On Monday, the Cubs were off. Tuesday's game started off promising with Ben Brown getting 2 strikeouts in the first inning. He then gave up a 2-run shot in the top of the second, but scattered 4 more hits from that point through to the 5th inning. He gave up the 2 runs and struck out 5. The Cubs got on the board in the second after Nico hit a single, and then Matt Shaw smoked a double to right field to drive him in. In the 5th, after an Ian Happ walk, Tucker drove his second double of the game to the right field wall, and Seiya Suzuki crushed a 3-run shot to put the Cubs ahead 4-2. The Brewers made it a little closer with a run in the 6th off of Genesis Cabrera, but then after making a hell of a play in the field in the top of the 8th, P. Crow Armstrong absolutely crushed a solo shot to give the Cubs an insurance run and a lead 5-3. Daniel Palencia finishes the game off for his 7th save, and it was time to sing the song. Wednesday's game was postponed and rescheduled for a doubleheader later on in the season. On Thursday, they got off to a rocky start when Jackson Chourio ripped a double in the top of the first inning, and then Christian Yelich ripped a single to drive Chourio in. Jameson Taillon, who had been pitching beautifully recently, has been hit hard by both of these guys in his career, and he gave up 2 hits to each of them, totaling for half of his 8 hits given up. P. Crow Armstrong hit a 2-run bomb in the bottom of the first, but then Taillon gave up a solo home run to Hoskins and then a 2-run homer to Caleb Durbin. William Contreras contributed an RBI single to drive in Chourio again in the 3rd, and that put the Brewers up 5-2. Dansby hit a solo shot in the bottom of the 4th, but then Genesis Cabrera, coming in relief in the 5th, walked Contreras, gave up a double to Bryce Terang, and then after getting the second out with Hoskins, gave up a 3-run homer to Isaac Collins, giving the Brewers an 8-3 lead. The Cubs rallied for 2 in the 7th off an Ian Happ home run from the right side, and then 2 more in the 8th as Abner Uribe had some control issues loading the bases via 2 walks and a hit by pitch. Carson Kelly drove in PCA on a fielder's choice, and Nico Horner drove in Swanson on a single. Matt Shaw, who's been struggling again, popped out to end the 8th. In the 9th, Happ walked and then Tucker struck out, and after driving the count to full, and Suzuki ground out on a hard hit ball to 3rd for a double play to end the game. Rough inning for sure. The Cubs got great pitching the last 4 innings from Chris Flexen for 3 innings and Drew Pomeranz for the last inning. The 2 have been very impressive. On Friday, Cal Raleigh welcomed himself to Wrigley and hit a solo shot in the top of the 1st off of Matthew Boyd. The Cubs answered right back, though, with a solo shot off Ian Happ, and then, after a Kyle Tucker single and a Seiya Suzuki double, Michael Busch drove them both in with a single of his own. In the top of the 4th, Boyd issued Cal Raleigh and Mitch Walker walks. Donovan Solano drives Raleigh in with a single. In the bottom of the 5th, Reese McGuire slugged a homer to put the Cubs on top, 4-2. But that was the last of the scoring for the Cubbies. And unfortunately, Matthew Boyd had to leave the game because to end the top of the 5th, he had made a magnificent play on a comebacker off J.P. Crawford. but he ended up with a bruised shoulder, and it was tightening up on him, and he wasn't able to continue. They gave up a 2-run homer to Garver in the 6th off of Ryan Presley, another homer to Raleigh off of Caleb Theobard, this time a 2-run shot in the 7th, and another 3-run homer to Mitch Garver off of Genesis Cabrera. Mariner catchers killed us on Friday. On Saturday, the Cubs bats jumped out to an early lead on Emerson Hancock. Ian Happ leads it off with a solo shot, and then Kyle Tucker followed that up with a solo shot of his own. Then in the 2nd, Carson Kelly hit a double off Michael Bush after Michael Bush drew a walk. Nico Horner then grounded out, driving in Bush, followed by a Vidal Brujan walk, and then another Ian Happ home run, this time a 3-run shot, giving the Cubs a 6-1 lead. In the 3rd, PCA leads off with a double, then Dansby Swanson draws a walk before Bush drove in everyone, including himself, driving a 3-run homer. In the top of the 4th, the Mariners got a double off of Jorge Polanco. Luke Raley got hit by pitch, and then Donovan Solano hit a single to drive in Polanco. Cole Young finished off the scoring in the 4th with a sac fly. The 5th started off rocky with a single from Crawford, another single from Polanco, and then Randy Arozarena reached on a throwing error from Brujan, scoring Crawford. Then back-to-back singles from Luke Raley and Donovan Solano off Drew Pomeranz scored 2 more to make it 9-6 in favor of the Cubs. The bottom half of the inning saw Pete Crow Armstrong drive a solo shot to right field at 110.4 miles per hour to give the Cubs a 10th run of the day. The Mariners got a solo shot from Raleigh in the 9th, his 3rd homer of the series. The final was 10-7. Great to see the bats going more with the pitching struggling some. Sunday's game started out rough, and the Cubs were in it through the 5th, but then the bullpen couldn't hold off the Mariners' offense and just got crushed. Total runs were 20 for the game between both teams, and the ball was flying out of Wrigley today. 9 total home runs, 3 players accounted for 6, each of them having 2, Seiya Suzuki, Dominic Canzoni, and Donovan Solano. Every Mariner had at least 1 hit except Mitch Garver, and Cal Raleigh is an absolute stud as he hit his 4th homer of the series today. The Cubs offense hit some home runs, but they had 10 hits, but were only 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position, which means we really aren't playing well fundamentally. We are way too reliant right now on the long ball, and we've got to do a better job of hitting situationally. I would say there's not a whole lot of productive outs right now. Preview for this first part of this next week with the Cardinals. The Cubs just completed Game 77 today against the Seattle Mariners, and tomorrow, June 23rd, will be the first game of the season against St. Louis. That just seems criminal that we have not played them at all this season. That said, this is a team that has played well above what most expected him for this season, myself included. They are dominant at home with a 24-15 record in Busch Stadium. They had a 5-game winning streak that was ended today and are going 6-4 in the last 10. They are 8th in the league in runs scored at home with 4.89, while the Cubs are still tops in the majors on the road, scoring 5.64 runs per game. This could be another high-scoring series for sure. The Cardinals' pitching at home has been pretty good, and overall middle of the road, but at 3.74, I would say that's pretty solid. Chicago's road ERA is a 3.77, good for 11th in the league. The pitching matchups for Wednesday and Thursday still have not been announced, but Monday will be Ben Brown versus Matthew Liberatore, and Tuesday will be Jamison Taillon against Eric Fetty. These should be some fun matchups. The injury report, Shota Imanaga had another rehab start on Friday on the 20th with Iowa, and it went very well, throwing 72 pitches and going 4 1/3 innings, striking out 8, walking 2, and allowing 0 runs off 2 hits. Yesterday, Craig Counsell said that Shota Imanaga is expected to come back this week and pitch against the Cardinals. I'm guessing This is just speculation, but I'm guessing he will start on Wednesday. Eli Morgan had a rehab outing with Iowa on June 17th and experienced a setback with his elbow. He would be reevaluated, and there doesn't seem to be any timetable right now. Porter Hodge also had a rehab outing with Iowa on the 17th and also on the 20th. I'll talk about that in a second. He worked one inning on the 17th with 17 pitches and ended up with 1 K and 1 walk. He then made another appearance on the 20th against Nashville. The same day Shota made his rehab start and got absolutely shelled. In a third of an inning, he gave up 7 runs, 6 earned, 4 hits, 2 walks, and no strikeouts. To be clear and a reminder, his first 2 outings at AAA were very good. This was a huge disappointment, though. He's had 2 other outings while in the majors where he had been giving up multiple runs, though earlier in the year, and he bounced back well. Hopefully that happens this time again. But I'd expect he will have at least 1 or 2 more appearances before being brought back to the majors. Matthew Boyd on Friday made an incredible play on a comebacker hit by J.P. Crawford. Boyd caught the ball at his right shoulder, and it was hit so hard that it hit his shoulder through his glove so hard he ended up with a deep bruise and tightness in his shoulder that prevented him from working at least another inning. Today, though, Craig Counsell said, at this point, Boyd is feeling pretty good after it, and hopefully he will not miss a start, which will be against St. Louis. Other transactions, we had Genesis Cabrera, who was DFA'd on Saturday, and the subsequent move with that was the Cubs bringing up Nate Pearson. Cabrera had given up at least a run in 5 of his last 6 games, going 6 1/3 innings, allowing 9 earned runs, 10 hits, 4 home runs, and striking out 5, but 3 of them was in just the 1 game against Philly. He was just not the answer for that last spot in the bullpen. However, I don't understand bringing up Nate Pearson. Pearson in 19 games at Iowa hasn't been bad. In fact, his ERA shows he's been pretty good. But he's still walking a lot of batters, and he isn't going to get away from that as much in Major League Baseball. In 24 1/3 innings, he had 15 walks, and his whip is 1.32. Again, whip is walks, hits per inning pitched. His ERA was 2.22, and his OAV, opponent's batting average, is 200. Pretty darn solid for sure. I, however, would have preferred one of 2 other pitchers. Phil Bickford, I think, would have been a better option, but not my ultimate preference. He is not on the 40-man roster, but there is a spot open right now, as there's only 39 currently on the 40-man. Or Luke Little. Bickford, in 19 games and 26 2/3 innings, has walked 6 batters and has a whip of .79 to go with an ERA of 2.70 and an opponent's average of 161. Luke Little, in 19 games for the season, 27 1/3 innings, has walked 12 batters with a whip of .91 and has an ERA of 1.32 and an opponent's average of 144. I think Little deserves a legit chance of being part of the big league club, and I believe that's long overdue, to be honest. Even in the majors, he has had more success than either of the other 2. I said we're going to talk about some umpires. I consider myself old school and not always liking some of the changes that have happened recently in baseball. I used to be a big believer that the human element is what helps make the game fun. However, some of these calls that the umpires make are just egregious. Combine that with the fact that the umpires seem to have a quicker hook than usual in throwing players out of games, and it appears to me that something has to change. It's just not good for the game to have players thrown out because they just make a simple statement about how awful of a call was, or even if they get a little heated. Don't get me wrong, you can only allow them to get so upset. I get that. It would still need to be done right. If you bump into an umpire or yell in their face and throw stuff and just act silly and stupid, then yeah, they definitely need to be tossed. Some of these umpires, though, are just not consistent, and even when they are consistent, they're just wrong more times than not. They need to start fining, suspending umpires for a couple of these things, especially when it's an egregious thing, or they're throwing people out just because They don't want to put up with it, and they know they're wrong, and they're tired of being embarrassed. They do that with the players, and I see no reason why we can't do that with the umpires. If the players get out of hand, they get fined or suspended, and those decisions are subjective. So whomever decides those things can decide the same for umpires. If someone told you you're having a bad day and you throw that player out, you're suspended or fined a game worth of money. You impacted the game negatively in many ways by 1, not calling the game even close to correctly, 2, having thin skin and ejecting a player who was just stating some criticism. If you don't like it, don't be an MLB umpire. Also, they need to allow more challenges than they do, and the ABS system allowing challenges of balls and strikes. I'm not sure exactly how far this should go, but the goal is to get it right, correct? I get it, these umpires are human. We all make mistakes, but when there's something that can help us get it correct, consistently and efficiently, why wouldn't we use it? Even better, just let the ABS system make all the balls and strike decisions. Let the home plate umpire focus on if a batter swings instead of checking the swing, make calls of safer out. There's still a need for the home plate umpire, even without balls and strikes. This would definitely help with the efficiency part as well. At that point, if we were to do that, players would need to be told there is no leeway if you argue balls and strikes at that point. It's a robot doing it. You argue, you get tossed. If you argue balls and strikes, if they're doing that and they use the ABS system just for that, the player gets tossed. I mean, there's got to be some kind of give back to that too. Because you're not arguing with a human at that point. It's just silly. Please tell me what you think about that. I'd love to see some comments about what you all think about that idea for umpires and how we can help fix that part of the game. Last week we talked about a couple more players who possibly could be drafted by the Cubs. We talked about Tyler Bremner, who right now is my favorite for that. If he drops to us at 17, I think we should be all over that. Gavin Killen and Jace LaViolette were also talked about last week. This week we have Wahiwa Aloy, a 21-year-old shortstop from Arkansas. His hit rating is 50. Power is 55, run is 45, arm is 55, and field is 55. Overall, it's a 50, and he's ranked 22nd overall for draft prospects. Daniel Pierce, ranked 18th overall, an 18-year-old shortstop from Mill Creek, Georgia, has a hit of 55, power is 45, run is 60, the arm and fielding are both 55, and overall he's 55. These are scouting grades from MLB.com, as always, just like they're going to be with the next ones, too. Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to join our Facebook group at Clark and Addison, Born Into the Ivy, and our Instagram page. Leave some posts or comments in there about what you'd like to hear or what you thought about today's episode. However you subscribe to your podcast, please like and subscribe to Clark and Addison, Born Into the Ivy, so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Also, if you feel so inclined, please make sure to leave a 5-star review and leave me some comments. If you are enjoying this podcast, make sure to tell and share it with any of your friends who might be a Cubs or baseball fan. Have a great day, and let's go Cubbies. Paisley, send them home.
Go Cubs, go!
Living on the water, counting days since last summer.